What's up, everybody? Just wanted to welcome you to Beyond Belief, the show where we try to advance reason and logic and why we think what we think. What do you believe and why do you believe it? That's really what I care about tonight, is why do you believe what you believe? So, if you have a belief that you hold, you're the only reason I remember what day it is. Thank you, Katie. If you have a belief that you hold, I want to know why that you hold that belief. So, what is it? You can call in now, 864-485-5090. I did check before. Supposedly, it works. We'll see. We will see. But, as we wait, I wanted to check out one of the most controversial verses of the Bible, of Exodus 21. This is the fair treatment of slaves. I don't know how you feel about slavery. It's probably not a good thing. I hope you don't think slavery is a good thing. But the Bible seems to think that it's not bad. So let's jump in here. This is Exodus 21, fair treatment of slaves. These are the regulations. Oh, there's a special guest off camera. There is a special guest off camera. Tiana is here with me, and she is watching with me. Fair treatment of slaves. These are the regulations you must present to Israel. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. So I've heard Christians say this before of, hey, this is a nice way to treat slaves. Like, this is giving them a way out. But how much easier would it have been to say, hey, guys, let's stop treating people as slaves? Yeah. So instead of that, he says, hey, set him free in the 7th year. You can keep him for 6 years. That's fine. But in the 7th year, get rid of him. If he was single when he became your slave, you shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be freed with him. And I'm all for that. Hey, if a wife or husband and wife are together, he's a slave, yeah, set him free after 7 years. Whatever. All I'm saying is, could God of the universe have said, hey, let's just not have slavery? Let's do that instead of all these rules. But let's go. Verse 4. If his master gave him a wife while he is a slave. So if a master gave a slave a wife, here's what happened to them. And they had sons or daughters, then only the man will be free in the 7th year, but his wife and children will still belong to his master. So let me get this straight. You're telling me if I have a slave and he takes a wife, then only I will be free in the 7th year. My wife and kids are still property to the slave owner. That's what God has said here. Not man, but God. But the slave may declare, in verse 5, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I don't want to go free. If he does this, his master must present before God. Then his master must take him to the door or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life. Okay, so here's a loophole here. So let's say you have a slave, right? And you don't want him to go you don't want him to go free after 6 years. All you have to do is get him married and get him to have some kids, and then obviously he's not going to want to leave, so he's your slave forever at that point. That's all you have to do. I mean, I'm reading what you're reading here. Verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, which is kind of disgusting in its own right, like that your daughter can be sold off as a slave. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, I wonder what that means. if she doesn't satisfy her owner. I wonder what that means. I'm sure you could probably think about what that means. If she doesn't satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again. But he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contract with her. So if she doesn't satisfy her owner, I like how it says slave and owner here, then he can give her back to be bought. I think we all know what that means. Yeah, I agree, Katie. But if the slave owner, verse 9, if the slave owner arranges for her to marry his son, then he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter. So, if I have a slave that's a woman, and she's not pleasing me the way I think she should be pleased, then I can either sell her back, or I can give her as a slave to my son. Okay? If a man, verse 10, if a man who has married a slave wife takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. If he fails in any of these obligations, she may leave as a free woman without making payment. Now, I do agree with this part. Let's say you have a slave and it's a woman, and she is not fulfilling her duties, which I think is bogus to begin with. But if a man, who is married to a slave takes another wife, then that's fine. But you can't neglect food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. Really? If a man takes another wife, that's fine, as long as you don't, take food from her, take clothing from her, take sexual intimacy from her, then it's fine. But, verse 11 says, right here, if he fails in any of these obligations, she can leave as a free woman without payment. So then she can leave. Now this is God here. This is God directing these talks, right? So what I want to know is, as a Christian, do you support these? Do you support what God is saying? This is my law. This is what I think. This is what should happen. This is good. Because I don't. I personally think this is garbage. That he should have said from the beginning, hey, y'all stop owning people as slaves. Hey, y'all women, stop owning them as property. Who cares if they're not satisfying you? They're a person. They're a human being. And if they're not satisfying you, then maybe you should look at your own self and figure out why. Instead of just getting rid of them as property. And then it goes on in verse 12. Anyone who assaults and kills another person must be put to death. I agree with that. I don't agree with the death penalty necessarily. But I agree. If you kill another person, sure, be put to death. Whatever. If that's what God is saying, then we'll go with it. But if it was simply an accident permitted by God, so God permits accidents. That's what that verse is saying. I will appoint a place of refuge where the slayer can run for safety. However, if someone deliberately kills another person, then the slayer, the one who kills, must be dragged even from an altar and be put to death. Now listen, I'm not a person for the death penalty. I'm not, because I don't think there's anything in this life that you can do, even killing someone else, that deserves to be put to death. Because in the moment, you can be thinking one thing, and then in another moment, you could be thinking a completely different other thing. And I think there's some restoration and healing that can happen. And so, yes, even if you kill somebody, I don't think there should be a death penalty. Because what's the punishment? Death? No. I think the punishment should be, sure, in jail for the rest of your life. But not death. Because what's death do for you? Nothing. Unless it involves children. Even if it involves children. Well, okay, what's death, though? I think you should be, if you're involving children into this, I'm even for torture at that point, but not death. Not death. Death is an escape. It's not the right penalty. But God says here in verse 16, kidnappers must be put to death, whether they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. Anyone who dishonors the father or mother must be put to death. So think about that. Have you ever dishonored your mother or father? Have you? God says you should be put to death. Now, I say God as I believe this stuff, but I don't believe in any of this stuff. I used to, but not anymore. So, that being said, I want you to call in 864-485-5090. If you think I'm way off track here, if you think I've missed something, if you have something you have to tell me, please let me know. I'll be glad to talk to you and figure out, I'll figure it out with you. But from what I see here, God is saying, hey, not only can you own slaves, here's how you should own them. Not only can you have women as slaves, here's how you should own them. Not only can you kidnap someone, but here's how you're put to death if you do kidnap someone. Which I think kidnapping is, I don't know, depending on what you're doing, kidnapping is one thing, but death is a whole nother thing. So here's what I like. Verse 18, now suppose two men quarrel. Two men are fighting, right? And one hits the other with a stone or fist. The injured person does not die, but is confined to bed. So they're fighting together. He doesn't die, but he's seriously injured to the point where he's confined to a bed. If he is later able to walk outside again, even with a crutch, the assailant will not be punished, but must compensate his victim for lost wages. So you're telling me I can beat up somebody, as long as they don't die, then they're fine. So I got a caller here. This is, if I'm reading this right, this is Josh Abraham. Let's talk. Hey Josh, welcome to the show.
What's going on now?
What's going on? Can you tell me in the comments, everybody, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear yourself?
I can hear I don't know.
Okay. I want to make sure the call is working this week and not bad. What's going on, Josh?
Another day in paradise.
Another day in paradise. So, what do you have? What do you have to add to the conversation?
Okay. You say, do I have proof in God? All right. So, energy is never created nor destroyed. Where did it come from to begin with? There's no way it was always here to begin with, because something just doesn't come from nothing. Every action has an equal or opposite reaction. So that being said, there had to be some sort of action to cause a reaction, even if it's Christian, the Buddhist, Muslim, anything. I know you base all your stuff off of Christian stuff or whatever,
Sure.
cool and dandy and all, but there's thousands of religions, thousands. So, I mean, basically you're rolling the dice and picking one, and you're like, well, this is the one I'm going with. But they all have a base. What am I trying to grasp at? The base root. They all have a root. And the root is the energy that we were created with was put here by something, some sort of force put the energy into motion. Whether you say that's the Big Bang, whether it's a Christian God, whether it's a Muslim God or whatever, it's still the energy was created, and you prove me wrong. I mean, you tell me that it was always here to begin with, because that's what the Bible says. There's no way. You still hear me? Okay, we're gone. All right. Let me know whenever you get audio. See you, Peter.
Can I get a hello? Can everybody hear me all right now? Can everybody hear me? What is going on with this? All right, everybody can hear me now. We're back. I think we're back. I have no idea what happened there. What is going on? All right, so let's try this again. We are 23 minutes in. And we have audio now. Yeah, we have audio. Okay. I have no idea what's happening. I've never had this problem before. You guys know that I've been watching for a long time. We've never had this problem before. But I'm scared to change anything. So I'll do this. I'll take that away and I'll stay right here for now. If anybody wants to call in, you can call in. 864-485-5090. You can call in and we'll talk about stuff. Josh, call back if you want to. If anybody else wants to call in, we'll talk. I'm just glad we have audio now. Can y'all still hear me? I'm just making sure everybody can still hear me now, because who knows with these days. Tell that dude he can call back. All right, we have audio, everybody. Yay. Alright, so here's what I want to do. I want to go back to the Bible real quick while nobody's calling in. And I want to read verse 20. Because verse 20 is the most troublesome to me. Here we go. Hey, Josh.
What the?
I have no idea what happened, man. Can everybody hear him and me? Yeah, so what created everything? I don't know. But here's my thing. How do you know it's a who instead of a what?
Hey, exactly. I don't. But if you think that it's a thing or action, anything, is that not God?
I mean, I know that a lot of people call different things God. I don't know necessarily that just because we don't know what happened means that God did it. But yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm willing to admit that I don't know what happened. How do you know that it was a God?
Well, the creation, even if it was a natural phenomenon, that natural phenomenon was the cause of me being here today.
I agree. So how do you tell the difference between if it was a God that did it or if it was just natural phenomenon?
How do I tell the difference?
Yeah.
Because I'm existing here, right here today, talking. If, like, random chance or whatever, natural selection, all that led to right here, what created natural selection to begin with? I mean, there had to be something said in, like, physics, what created the laws of physics.
Sure.
I mean, that brings in string theory. What created string theory? I mean, and then
without getting too far into it, hold on. Without getting too far into it, yes, it started. Okay, scientifically, it has not been infinite. I'm with you on that. So it had to start somewhere. We would say the Big Bang, at least our universe. So,
well, if you believe in the Big Bang, wouldn't that not be your God?
No, I think that's where the evidence points to. But to say that a creator did it, that's where I don't know that I've ever seen evidence of a creator, so I don't know that I can attribute it to him. If I saw evidence of a creator, I would say, yeah, obviously this creator did it. But I haven't seen evidence of a creator to say, hey, this guy did it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that brings up relativity because we're only limited within our human perception, what we can comprehend within our human brain. Don't you think there's a whole entire realm out there that we can't comprehend within our human brains? I mean, for instance, something that we can actually detect, infrared.
Sure.
Go outside and tell me you can see it.
Yeah, you can't see infrared, but we can measure infrared. We can detect infrared.
and we can detect the beginnings of our universe too. And if we can detect the beginnings of our universe, wouldn't that be considered our God? That's what created us. Because the God or whatever, by human definition, is the human creation, the creator of us. Whatever that is, I mean, it doesn't have to be a being or whatever. I don't know why everybody thinks it has to be a being. It could be a literal force or whatever, like gravity.
So you think God is gravity?
It could be just something that creates forces. I don't know. I mean, that leads into Fibonacci spiral. Every time we get closer to that answer, we'll get further away.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree with you. It could be a lot of things. It could be a whole simulation.
Mm-hmm.
But until I have evidence, can we talk about how much we hate you get for voicing your opinion and how you handle it? Yeah, we'll get to that, Katie. But until there's enough evidence, Josh, I don't know that I can say for 100% that there has to be this being that created us. That's my only point. It could be anything, but I haven't seen evidence that there's a single creator that we can know for sure created us. Would you agree to that?
The only thing that I can say is constant in this universe is energy.
Energy and change.
So,
my friend, energy and change.
All right. Let me get off.
All right, man. I appreciate you calling in, Josh.
All right. I just wanted to make sure I had audio and whatnot. I wasn't sure what happened in the first time.
I don't know what happened either, man, but I appreciate you calling in.
All right.
All right, bye. All right, so Katie wanted to bring up a point. She said, can we talk about how much hate you get for voicing your opinion and how you handle it? Yeah, so I feel like I have lost a lot of friends, y'all. A lot of friends. But my identity and my everything was wrapped up in this religion, church environment, right? And so obviously if I come out of that, then I'm going to lose those friends. But I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't expecting that. And so, yeah, that really hit me hard. But I don't want to ever come across as rude. I met with somebody today. For instance, I met with somebody today. We went out to lunch together. He is a theist. He believes in God. And I'm an atheist. I don't believe in a God. But we had really good conversation. I found out exactly how he got to where he believes. And he found out exactly where, or at least I feel like he found out exactly why I don't believe. Now, that being said, we left there completely the same as when we got there. He still believes, I still don't believe. But we talked about why we didn't, and we were able to get along, and I still appreciate him as a friend. Is it the same person I'm thinking of? Probably not, Katie. Probably not. But at the end of the day, we are all going through life trying to figure out truth. Trying to figure out what that truth means. And for him, he was convinced that the truth is the Bible and that God is Jesus and he resurrected and he died for our sins. And the only way to get to heaven is by believing in him. And confessing, that he is Lord. For me, I'm not convinced of that. That's all it is. I'm not trying to be this mean atheist trying to tear down your beliefs. And I think he would tell you that if he were here. I'm just telling you why I'm not convinced. To me, there's not enough evidence to believe in the resurrection of Jesus. And even if there were, even if Jesus resurrected, so what? Lazarus came back from the dead. Enoch never even died. So, I mean, that's just say he's the Messiah. If all we're basing it on is that you're resurrected, that means you're God, then Enoch will be God because he never even died. But no, it's more than that. It's more about evidence. Did Jesus really live? Which I'm not a mysticist. I think he really lived. but I don't think he performed miracles. I don't think he resurrected from the dead. And that's just my opinion. I don't think there's evidence to compel me. But hey, maybe you're the person to call in 864-485-5090 and say, hey, this is the evidence that Jesus did rise from the dead. Jesus is Lord, and this is why. We got about 20 more minutes left. I just received a text message, and it's all good. So, if you think you have evidence, please let me know what that evidence is, because I'm glad to hear about it. So, one of the things I learned during this whole process of figuring out what I believed and why I believed it is reason and logic and why you should believe something and what kind of evidence should convince somebody of something. And for me, I looked at the evidence that I used to present as evidence, and I don't see it as good evidence. I looked at the reasons I believed in Christianity, and I don't see them as good reasons anymore. And I can tell you exactly why if you want to call in 864-485-5090. Yeah, call in. Tell me the evidence or tell me the reason that you believe, and we'll talk about it. I'm not going to shoot holes in your theory. I'm not going to be mean, but I do want to talk about it. So if that's you tonight, if you believe in Jesus and you have a reason that you believe, 1 Peter 3:15, always be ready to give a reason for the hope that you have. That's exactly what the verse that started me off in this journey. Call in 864-485-5090 and let's talk about it. We got about 20 minutes left. My thing is, you don't hate other Christians, but you're not mean about it either. I don't ever want to be mean. Katie, I don't ever want to be mean about it. If you believe in Christianity, that's great. Why should I believe in Christianity? Why should I be convinced? Always be ready to give the reason for the hope that you have. That's what the Bible says. So my question is, what is the reason that you have? And is it good reason? My thing is, why don't you hate other Christians or not mean about it, but other people are? Yeah, I don't know. Katie, I think it has to do more with the people. Listen, there are mean, and I mean mean, atheists. But there are also mean Christians. I think it's just people being people. And we do have a caller. Let's join them. Thank you for calling Beyond Belief. Who am I speaking with?
Rather not say.
Well, I'm gonna come up with a nickname for you. This is John. And John, what do you have for us tonight? Can you maybe turn down the volume so I'm not hearing myself echo?
Yeah, but you're not saying the same thing. There we go.
All right. So what's going on tonight, John?
I just want to correct something.
What's that?
People didn't really turn against you. I know that, you think that people did, and a lot of people got upset. I want the people to know you're a good-hearted person. Regardless of what you've done or how you feel or what you think and what you're searching for. But I got a question for you.
Well, thank you, John, first of all. Second of all, what's that question?
Are you figuring out who I am?
I have no idea who you are. 100%.
Okay, good. All right. I'll let you know later. My question, did anything ever happen during your transactions? You were youth minister and all that, and job, it kept on, pressure, stuff like that. Was that anything to do with all of a sudden you wanting to turn it and be negative and pick out things and say, things ain't right?
Fair question. No, there was a lot of things that happened during my youth ministry time. I was a youth pastor for 8 years, and there were a lot of things that I didn't like that I what frustrated me. How about that? And that had nothing to do with me figuring out what I believed and why I believed it. For me, and I'll be honest with you, it happens different for everybody. But for me, it was a debate I had with a Jehovah's Witness. And that really opened my eyes for the first time to why do I believe what I believe? And is it biblical? And why should I even trust the Bible to begin with? That's the reason, that's what led me into this journey. No, it wasn't anything bad that happened.
And as far as your family and all, kids, you're very supportive on their beliefs and on up through life until they get to their point they make their own decisions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, if my kids want to be Christians, then that's all them, and I'll support them and love them no matter what. If they don't, then I will never tell my kids, hey, kids, there is no God. Let me make that clear. I will never tell my kids that. But I will ask them questions. The same questions. So my son Aaron, he came up to me one winter, and he was like, Daddy, how does Santa get to all these places in one night? He's a very smart kid. And I said, son, well, how does he? I didn't tell him the answer. I made him think about it. Is it possible? Is this kind of thing possible? And he eventually came to the conclusion that Santa doesn't exist.
Right.
And in the same way, when he asks questions about God, I will ask questions back to him to make him think. But I will never tell my son there is no God. I don't I don't know. So I will never tell him that there is no God. But I will ask him questions to get him thinking himself.
Well, I wanted to call in and just kind of speak a minute and just say, hey, you're getting a phone call, all right? So whoever's watching can at least see, hey, he's getting a call. Let's watch and see.
I appreciate that, really.
Yeah. So, I'll let you know who this is.
I have an idea who this is, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure.
I think you know who it is.
But
I'll talk to you.
I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you calling.
Be good. Good night.
Thank you, sir. All right. So, yeah, I appreciate the call, and I love talking about this stuff. Listen, I talked for an hour and a half with a guy today at lunch about this stuff, and he believes completely different than I do. It was completely respectful and completely honest. He was honest with me, and he told me this. He said there's holes in my logic, and I understand that, but I still believe it. And I was like, wow, I've never had a Christian tell me that. I've never had a Christian tell me there's holes in my logic, and I still believe it regardless. To me, that was freaking amazing. And so I respect him wholeheartedly for being honest. And so, yeah, like, if you have a different belief than I do, please call in. We can talk about it. I'm not this mean atheist that has been presented. So, yeah, we got about 15 minutes left. And if I don't get a call within the next 5 minutes, we'll end it early. But I appreciate the calls tonight. It's been fun tonight. Yeah, I want to go back to the Bible here. What I was about to say before that was verse 20. If a man beats his male or female, it doesn't matter if it's male or female. This is God speaking. If a man beats his male or female slave with a club, and the slave dies as a result, the owner must be punished. Listen, I'm all for that. First of all, I'm not for slavery. But if you have a slave and you beat them, then yeah, I'm all for punishment. Verse 21. But if the slave recovers... I appreciate that message. That's who I thought it was. But if the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner should not be punished, since the slave is his property. So, let me say this. I've had a lot of people say, hey, you don't know what Exodus is talking about. you're wrong. Slavery is not promoted in the Bible. Actually, it is. Exodus verse 20, verse 21. If the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner shall not be punished, since the slave is his property. It's his property. He can do with it what he wants. If a man beats his slave with a club and he dies, then yeah, we'll punish him. But if he's okay after a day or two, within a day or two, literally that's what it says. If the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner shall not be punished. It's fine. It's part of it. No. What the heck are you believing right now? I'm going to read the comments. That's what I'm saying. People can comment on stuff you post that doesn't have anything to do with what you discuss on your podcast. And that's kind of made me upset. Yeah, so I had somebody post recently. I had posted about something completely different. I had posted about something that I was doing over the weekend. And somebody posted like, if you can't see something, then it doesn't exist. I'm like, what does that have to do with what I'm posting right now? Like, if you want to talk to me, talk to me. I'm here. I'm available. I went to lunch with somebody today to talk to them. But if you don't want to talk, if you're afraid to talk, that's fine. But don't sarcastically post on my Facebook comments. I do a very good job. And this is why I have this show. I do a very good job of posting things, and then I let it be. I don't, if you notice, I don't post rarely back. I don't reply back. I post, and then I let it be. I have this show so I can spend 1 hour a week talking to people that want to talk about this stuff. But if you don't want to talk about it, then I don't want to bombard you with it. And so I spend 1 hour a day talking about this stuff. If you post on one of my comments, or if you comment on one of my posts, you're not going to get a reply, because this is what I have this show for, is to talk about it. If you want to talk, let's talk. If you don't want to talk, then why are you posting? I love this. Verse 22. Let me bring it back up here. Verse 22. Now suppose two men are fighting, excuse me. And in the process, they accidentally strike a pregnant woman, and she gives birth prematurely. If no further injury results, then the man who struck the woman must pay the amount of compensation of the woman's husband demands. Who knows how much that is? And the judges approve. But if there's further injury, the punishment must match the injury. A life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, and a bruise for a bruise. Is this how our justice system should be? Now, we're getting into some deep moral stuff, but is this how our moral justice should be? Because I think not. I think not. I think not. So, all that to say, could God have said, hey, don't have slaves? Yes, he could have. He's God. In fact, in the next chapter, he talks about how you shouldn't eat shellfish. Shellfish, of all things. You shouldn't eat shellfish. But in this chapter, he talks about how you can own a slave, how you can beat a slave, and still be okay. As long as he doesn't die within a day or two, you can have a slave, beat him, as long as he doesn't die within a day or two. And if you've got a problem with that, call me. 864-485-5090. That's what I want to know. We got about 5 minutes left. If you want to call in. We'll talk about it. We got about 5 minutes left. But don't sit there and tell me that God isn't for slavery, because he is. In fact, I just read how he proves, or how he approves of slavery. He tells them how it should be done. Don't tell me he doesn't approve of slavery. Point blank. So if you think slavery is immoral, then you're on the other side with God. Because let me tell you, in the New Testament, he doesn't say anything about slavery either. In the New Testament, you know what he says? Slaves, obey your masters. Even the cruel ones. Even the mean ones that treat you wrong. Obey them. That's what he says in the New Testament. That's all he says. He doesn't say, hey, you shouldn't own slaves. He says, slaves, obey your masters.
That pizza's so good, babe.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What?
That pizza's so good. I should tell you.
You got pizza?
Yes.
It's here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting off of here. We got pizza, and I'm about to eat. So, I'm going to get off of here. But good night, everybody. I will talk to y'all next week, 9 o'clock, at Beyond Belief. And let me tell you, if you think God is against slavery, please tell me in any verses that I just read how he's against slavery, because he's not. Good night. I'll see y'all next week.
Is it pure?